I say that because I have to ask, is it true that you once stood on stage and said, "You're not a teleporting unicorn"?
Ah, this is true. That was so embarrassing. I'm Zoya Lehrer, co-founder and CEO of Orgo. I spent 20 years in financial services, working at fintech, and now I'm innovating in sports tech. And we're helping active families manage logistics of youth sports. And I'm a parent, sports parent of 3 daughters myself, living the experience that we're trying to improve. And find us in both app stores and orgohq.com for more.
What's up, Zoya? How's it going?
What's going on, Brandon?
Doing good, doing good. So, before I even start this podcast, help me out. How do I say your last name? Is it Zoya Lehrer,
It's
Leah,
like a bunch of silent letters. It's Lehrer, and you
Lehr?
just swallow it in single syllable.
Single syllables.
Yeah.
All right, got it. Zoya Lehrer.
Yes.
So yeah, nice meeting you again. I don't even know or remember how we met. I'm in Dallas. You're in Austin. Someone told me, "Hey, you should talk to Zoya. She's building something very similar to what you're building." And yeah.
I'm actually in New Jersey outside of New York, so even further.
Oh, you're in New Jersey?
Yes.
Why did I think you were in Austin this whole time?
No, I'd love to visit, but that's just not where we
So
are.
you were never in Austin?
No.
Oh man.
New information already.
I know, right? New information already. Okay, so not in Austin, in New Jersey.
Yeah.
I'm in Dallas though. I'm still in Dallas. So yeah, just tell me about yourself. I was doing some research and I found out that you immigrated here with your mom when you were 9 years old with $20 in your pocket.
Even less. It was $8 in our pocket, which the story goes, that was the price of cab fare to go from JFK to Brooklyn, which is where our apartment was. So that's a story and we're sticking to it.
Wow, $8.
$8.
That's even less. I mean, what was running through your mind? Do you even remember what you were thinking at the time?
Yeah, I actually do. I was 9. And so, I look at my 10-year-old daughter and just kind of seeing that she's at this age very much has a lived experience and core memories as I did too, and friends and whole life, the one we left behind. But I remember arriving in Brooklyn. And this is like Coney Island, Brighton Beach area in the 90s, where most of the Eastern, European bloc landed around that time. And I remember on Brighton Beach, there were these flags, like the little, it was close to 4th of July. We came like in the June timeframe. And it was just like these little flags, the red, white, and blue. And I was like, wow, this is my celebration banner. Like they knew that I was coming. And these are for me from my arrival. I kid you not. Listen, like me, 9 years old, have zero, no idea of how the world works or like no reference point of what this new reality is. But I figured that this was such a big day in my life. And this is such a new beginning for, for the both of us, that surely this was the reception that we received, kind of pulling up into this area and seeing those little decorative flags around. But yeah, so that's another core memory of just not understanding at all and having zero context for what's about to happen.
Wow. I mean, that's a great way to enter the country. I mean, the universe was basically celebrating your
red,
arrival.
white, and blue. I was already bleeding it, so it was a match.
Okay, so you came to Brooklyn. What was your early life like? I saw something about Y2K and your mom being a secret coder while you're in the library reading books. Was that most of your childhood?
Yeah, so that was kind of the summer is for us to get ourselves up and kind of settled into this new norm. And so she went to work right away, and she was a computer programmer and a developer at a time when her skill set could be deployed despite her not having, the mastery of the English language.
Mhm.
I didn't know any either. And so she went to work. DIFUS thankfully was not called on us at the time because I just was by myself at a local library, and many hours spent there kind of teaching myself days of the week and numbers and letters and how to read, and had like an English Russian dictionary alongside me. And there was the Disney books that were then available at the library, the really large one with the large print and the beautiful pictures. And
Mhm.
I hadn't seen any of those movies, and so I just was immediately drawn into the stories, and then the words started to start to make sense over time. But it was the original pictures that kind of drew me in, and so I just like sat there and studied. And effectively that summer is what we prepped for. And so she would take like night classes, and she would take English lessons and driving lessons. And then I would
Mhm.
be preparing dinner, and just kind of we were making it work. And then come fall, we fell into yet another routine where I started school, and I was part of an ESL program, but my math was really advanced because there was just a mismatch of the way that the math programming kind of shook out. So my math was very advanced, and my English obviously was ESL. And so it was just trying to
Mhm.
navigate the dichotomy of all of that, which again was not unique to me. It was just like an area in which there was a lot of first generation immigrant children, and we were all kind of sharing in that experience and all the diversity that surrounded that. So it was just the best of times to have grown up within that, despite all the challenges that we certainly had.
Wow, that sounds like quite the wild ride for a young girl. I mean, you basically went on the startup journey in a different way through your childhood. I mean, was it hard? Did you enjoy it? I'm trying to wrap my head around
I know there's
coming
no
to a country
context.
with $8 in your
Mhm.
pocket, not speaking the language, going from there to where you are now. I mean, was your entire childhood just you in the library reading? I
It
mean,
wasn't just
what was it
reading. I mean,
like?
we were actually it was right on the beach. So like Brighton Beach, like no one really, unless you know the area well, like Coney Island, and it comes into an extension of that on Brighton, you're on the beach, and there's high-rise buildings that are, behind the boardwalk, but you are essentially growing up in the inner city with the subway and the trains running right behind.
Mm,
And right in front of that is a beach. And so our playground was right on the beach, and we hung out, and my mom would come home, after school, after work rather, and then we would go and we take a swim, and then I would be hanging out on the playground with my friends. And so that's a new norm, and frankly you can't question that because that's your reality. And so was that enjoyable? Yeah, it's your childhood, so like you take it for face value, and you're like, okay, this is what we're doing, and this is my new normal. We moved a ton, and so that normal changed quite frequently. But for the times that I was in that specific area, and like my earliest friends that I had made during that time, was just like the fondest memories, although it was a huge
mm,
reset. And so it takes a hit on your confidence. You've got to start anew. You have to have new friends, new language, new norms, trying to acclimate
mm.
to, what is all of this, kind of newness that surrounds a kid at an age where otherwise adolescence is already starting to become complicated, right? With relationships and just kind of coming into that preteen era. So all of it was happening all at once, and a bit of a foggy memory around it. But the ones that I certainly remember were core and overall positive for sure.
Yeah, I can definitely feel that part about making new friends. I switched schools quite a bit before high
Yeah.
school, and every time I felt like I would get to know this friend group, and by the time I get to know them, then it's time to start all over again. So by the time I got to high
Same.
school, which I actually stayed at the same high school, but still, they had already known each other their whole lives, and they already had all these inside jokes. And I was like the outsider coming in.
Yeah, for sure. I can definitely relate to that. In fact, leaving Brooklyn and coming into suburbia, which was one of like the core tenets of the move, was another immigration, is the way that I kind of think about it, because it was such a foreign experience, culturally, as well as just again norms and things, right? So the fact that they've grown up with one another was a huge jarring moment for me. Those relationships had been developed in the womb, so it seems,
Hmm.
certainly from kindergarten on. And then having that shared experience be even more so solidified through the fact that they've grown up in sports, whether it was playing on Little League, soccer, having had, again, kind of like that team camaraderie made that even stronger of an apparent difference of coming into something like that is so pre-shaped, and you're trying to kind of
Hmm.
wedge yourself into that. So that was an added challenge for sure. The fact that I've never been to a mall, the fact that I've never shopped at the places that they had, or even, kind of understood that that was something that somebody did, was an extra added element to it all. But just the fact that they've had those pre-existing relationships, I agree with you. That's definitely a tough part.
Though that probably helped you a lot in your adult life. Is there anything that you still take from your childhood that you use as a guide or North Star today? Something where you think, I did it that way then and it worked, and now I'm going to apply that same mindset.
Yeah, I think that overall, and probably a lot of like first generation, either children or, adults themselves, will say the chip on the shoulder that we all wear manifests itself differently for people,
Hmm.
depending on how you want to, kind of, I don't know, apply that. For me, was always from the auspice of change, better than, right? So my mom brought us here uprooted, the norm that she had and the life that she led, so we can have something better. And each move that we've made, each step that she had us take, was for that betterment. And so I think the chip on the shoulder that you've got something to prove, this is not all for naught. By the way, single and only child, so there's a lot of pressure to deliver on that very promise. But that chip on the shoulder in a positive way, that's kind of been a recurring theme. I think, to always, like, whatever step is being taken should be a creative, should be moving forward in some, palpable way.
Mm, I can see that. I
Yeah.
mean, you've had quite the journey from $8 to Wall Street to how many kids? Three kids
Yeah.
to startup. Um, what was next for you? I mean, coming to Brooklyn, having to start new friend groups, a couple times. Um, what was next? The college, the early career life like?
Yeah. I left, high school in 4 years at the time that we lived in that one place. And then my parents had sold a house and moved on to a different area from there. So, like, those ties, and I maintained certain relationships, but they were not as enduring because it was just those 4 years that, kind of stayed during that particular chapter. And then I went off to college. I went to Rutgers. And so I didn't go very far, although I never came home. So it seemed, but like I kind of, stayed generally in the Northeast, and I love New York. I'm like a New Yorker through and through. So definitely never went too far from that. But I studied computer science and information technology. I decided to follow my mom's footsteps. Definitely don't want to disappoint there, is the recurring theme. And so I applied that skill set immediately as I graduated early, in fact, and accelerated my coursework to land in a corporate setting, which I was all too eager to do. At the top of the year, instead of graduating with everybody and like walking with my class in June, which I wound up doing anyway, but in terms of kind of coming
Mm,
formally out of that, college phase and entering the workforce, I did that at the top of the year in January. And so I did that with MetLife, was my first job out the gate. And I was very, very happy there for quite a few years and have come to grow, with them as that organization evolved. And then went on to, have various management roles and executive roles over time, and always kind of stayed within the tech capacity. That's where my love lies. And it's no shock as to why, still continuing to pursue tech, but now from founder seat, but very much deploying those same skill sets that came out from both the formal as well as the corporate training.
okay. I actually had no idea that you had a degree in computer science. I guess that's why we got along so well when we first met.
Yeah, I started, fun fact. So I started with comp sci, as far as like a traditional path. And I was very fortunate to have learned that there was an experimental program at Rutgers at the time that was just starting up. And it was the first cohort that they were assembling, in that they phrased it as information technology and informatics, ITI. And knowing what I did about the field at large, from my
Mm.
mom having had a PC in our home for as long as, I can remember. Before we had a vacuum, we had a PC in the home, is how I recall it, because of the nature of her
That's more
job. And
important.
so, yeah, more important. And so I was naturally kind of drawn to it, but that was the only course, right? There was only path for you to pursue. And then Rutgers was one that recognized that the industry is more than that. There's web design, there's project management, there's network, there's, all these different aspects to it, all of the ones that I've come to know from my mom's experience. And so when I've learned that there is an opportunity to take part in something that's brand new and experimental, B, more importantly, reflects the true nature of the industry that I ultimately wanted to enter, leapt right into the loving arms of that program, left comp sci, but very much still, proceeded to take on the coursework that was otherwise required, whether to be, to do Java and be hands-on web development, web design. And this is way before AI, obviously. So we had to code everything up in Notepad, and syntax mattered and compiling errors galore.
Oh my
All of that
God.
was a very much
You
core
had to actually
experience.
read the API and documentation.
Everything, all of it. And so I loved it all. And so I can't claim a computer science degree proper, but I took a little bit of a sidestep. And so, was thrilled to have done so because it prepared me
20
for the
minutes in.
reality of what the industry at large really was represented as.
So you're still kind of a nerd, though.
Yeah.
It's funny because you don't seem like a nerd at all. When I met you, I thought she's really smart, understands computers and technology, but doesn't seem like a nerd. With me, I was pretty much a dork. I mean, if you see a picture of me back
Yeah.
then versus now, you'd be like, wow. But
Uh,
how did you build that
sure.
dual paradigm, being intellectual yet still charismatic? Was that always a thing or something new? Like with me, it's kind of new. I'm still working on it. But yeah, have you always been like this?
You're very brave. You're self-identifying and pushing through the admitted whatever limitations we think we have. Obviously, they're not true. So you're doing amazing. No, I think it's like over time, you're just care less, say more, think outside the box, not be afraid of saying the thing that you may feel in your gut, but you probably are filtering to not say it because of perception or whatever. I think
Mm,
that comes with time and confidence as well. And just having been put in many, many different, situations and circumstances where that was tested. And I'm in my unapologetic era. So that helps, just being that's the thing. This is what it is. Zero F's given, as far as what it could be, but it wasn't always that. The
hmm
20s, you'd asked the question earlier as far as what after college, it definitely was a formidable chapter where I was building my career in the, mid 20s up until, 30 at 28, I made officer at a Fortune 50 company. And so that was a big deal for me. I went on to have my first daughter at 28. And so that was a little bit of a moment, right, where you're just wow, I just got a major promotion. I'm stepping into my own office, which at the
mm,
time is a really big deal. And I'm saying to the individual who is taking that chance on me, I'm saying, be right back for a few months, right? Just so anxious to come back in. There's a famed picture of me literally in the delivery table, and I'm with my BlackBerry in hand, just going like this, one more
wow.
email, let me just get this one more email out, because I was so in it and so consumed by
hmm
it in all the best ways. I loved that culture, that chapter, the team, the everything that we were doing. And so yeah, it was a lot of it was just built up through that. And went on to have my second and third daughters, and kind of took some time during that
hmm
chapter where I had to chose to step back for a couple of years, came back into it, Martech, SaaS, and then got sucked back into banking because it's a vortex out here in the Northeast. You cannot avoid banking, especially if you're in tech. That's just the thing
It's in
that's
a lot of
happening. And,
places.
I enjoyed it quite a bit up until 2 years ago, where I proclaimed to have voted myself off the island to then pursue something different than that chapter had been, but still, parlayed those skills very much from, all of the while of overseeing large teams and working on the tech side of things, but also being very business minded, and then just trying to solve a real problem this time. Didn't love not being able to not touch the consumer appropriately, right? When you're so far
Right.
removed from what is it that you're building and who you're building it for, you start to kind of lose that passion. And over the last 20 years, as you can imagine, it's very difficult to maintain that connection. So kind of step back into to solve a problem for myself, but also, work with the latest tech and try to figure out what this next chapter holds.
All right. So, how did you get promoted so fast? You said you got your own office at 28, if I heard that
Yeah.
correctly. What was the one thing you did? I mean, besides being in labor with a BlackBerry sending emails, it sounds like you were grinding pretty hard. But is there anything else that you did along the way?
So much. Oh my God, so much. All of it was so intentional. I remember, like, I would study. My minor was in psychology and like behavioral psych, and I just remember being obsessed with observing people, figuring out what works for them, what works for me. I'd be a student of myself, student of others, and this is a time when everything was in person, right? So like, we were very much in the office every single day. And I had the great pleasure of observing, great leadership surrounding me, like trying to tap that formula and figure out like what's my own.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of things that I remember specifically, and actually I was just speaking with a computer science class for our high school here in town that my daughter's about to attend next year. And so a couple of things that I shared with the team, or with the class rather, is that early stage sitting in those meetings and just being like so small. I remember feeling so little and so small, and just being in like these round, table rooms, and tapped into a formula where I was like, okay, if I pipe in at like the 75th percentile or mark of the meeting, by this point, I would have accumulated a ton of information, would have been actively note taking on that, demonstrating that I'm participatory and I'm very, very present, and I'm nodding and I'm maintaining eye contact. I'm not zoning out. And then learning to speak and chime in at both a well-timed moment, but also having something very, very topical to say that is additive, not distracting, not just saying something to just be heard or generate noise for the sake of it being like, I'm here too, guys. Like, just really intentional about that. And then lastly, the point of leaving the room with a takeaway, volunteering. That even if I didn't know what somebody said or what somebody's about to do, if there was an action item that was being floated in a way that like was kind of nebulous and nobody really was like taking it, hey guys, I got this. I'll run with it. Having an oh shit moment outside, being like, I don't know what I just said yes to or who I have to talk to next, but like really taking the initiative to take something out of that room and then conversely bring it back into the room is how you kind of tether yourself to value. And the next thing you know, people start to connect to that, saying like, okay, next time she said that she took something away, she brought it back in, and let's give more, and let's see where it could go. And always like saying yes to the unknown. That was like my secret. Like, I'm the special teams, that if there was some element of something that someone wanted to get done, or some like initiative that we weren't quite certain about, I'm like, I got it. Like, let me go and figure that out. So I think that that's like a theme throughout, evidenced by this chapter as well. I got it. I'm going to go figure it out. And then eventually that meant, let's rally a whole team around figuring that out. Let's get a budget around that. Let's now get a whole new initiative project, whatever it is, or now company. But this notion of jumping readily into the unknown and having not, a whole lot of trepidation around that, I think is the tie back to the immigration story, not really knowing what's next, not really being in control of the circumstances, not being afraid to be like, put me into the fire, I'll figure it out,
That's a really valuable skill too, saying yes to the unknown. I mean, you essentially found yourself creating projects where you become the leader, delivering tremendous value to the organization. And they're like, wow, she just uncovered a blind spot.
Yeah. The thing that's different about corporate versus like founder life is that the problem is known. Someone's giving you something to do, right? There's very, very rare opportunities, is there, where you've got like carte blanche on, oh, we're not really sure, like go figure it out. It's like there are guardrails relative to scope or opportunity or problem solve. And so then you go and execute on that. It's a little bit more finite. The challenge then there becomes about executing through others. Because unlike Founderland, like a lot of folks who really tout that like, oh, I'm a solopreneur, I'm able to do all of these things on my own. corporate, unless you're an individual contributor, like you still have confines, like you're still doing other work for others. And as a leader in an organization, now you have to do it through others and with them as well. And then that becomes another skill set that gets developed over time. Some of us now, I don't see a whole lot of training formally around that, not at least in my recent experience. In my more formidable years early on, I did have formal training about what it's like to transition from an individual contributor to a people manager. There's a whole different skill set that needs to be taught. And some of us are more natural leaders from like, presentation and bravado and relationships, but they're actually like hard skills that should be taught in terms of like what it means to be a leader and to execute alongside others. And I was fortunate enough to benefit from very formal training, early on. But I think that's what people like struggle with a lot these days. It's like, well, how do I transition? I like to do things and I like to do them a certain way. And then other people enter that equation. Well, then what?
Yeah.
I have a hard time delegating, right? That could be a challenge. Or like, I'm not quite sure what then also needs to be done. What talent or skills to look for in others and deploy them productively. So those are all kind of earlier on experiences that I see even now playing out literally every single day.
So what I'm hearing is really the perfect origin story for a startup founder. I mean,
Okay.
you're getting all the end-to-end
Yeah.
skills, which is really what it takes to build a company. Similar to learning a new language, orchestrating teams, finding the unknown. It's the perfect setup for starting your own company. And I say that because I have to ask, is it true that you once stood on stage and said, "You're not a teleporting unicorn"?
This is true. That was so embarrassing. Recently, actually, yes. My whole thing about, and we see this often, like we built Orgo as a scheduling platform, specifically stemming from my pain point around logistics of youth sports and my whole observation around the fact that the tools that I would be assembling as the center of my household, relative to like different team management apps and all the calendars and chats and things, like the humans at the center of that story. And I took issue with those tools not being entirely helpful to me to kind of give me the confidence and clarity that I needed, and hence all the anxiety and confusion that I started to feel at scale enough to be able to, to do something about it. But specifically, the unicorn's comment is around the fact that, like, love you, Google Calendar, rely on you wholly all day long, but like you do not reflect my life as I actually live it. Like, whether sports parent or just a human IRL, 3 to 4 p.m. is never 3 to 4 p.m. I got to travel. I got to get there earlier. I got to start preparing. So my whole
Yep.
point about that is like, I'm not a teleporting unicorn. Like, you and I just dialed in. We're having this an amazing virtual conversation. We could do that. And we can say we're running 5 minutes over and we're right there. If I'm 45 minutes away at some like field elsewhere, I still have the traffic and all those things to contend with. I don't float. Right? I don't teleport. I'm not a unicorn. So we need tools that reflect life as we live it and tell time the way we spend it. And so that's kind of one of the premises of Orgo, that we've embedded that realistic experience of time keeping inside, our calendar.
Yeah, I definitely feel that as somebody with ADHD, time is like this mysterious illusion where you're always trying to grab it, but you can't reach
Yeah.
it. And I just can't be there at 4 o'clock on the dot. I need to be there either 10 minutes early or 30 minutes late
Early is
sometimes.
on time is what we say. Yeah,
I
on
know,
time.
right?
That is such an important point that you just made around time as a feeling. That's another thing that I talk a lot about, and we'll do a lot more of it once we kind of like start to produce a little bit more mass market content, and kind of drive awareness around Orgo that we haven't done as much yet. But this notion of time, like time is not meant to be felt. It feels subjective. It's like you feel time differently than I do, but like it's actually quite obsolete. Absolute, right? Like, is it obsolete? Absolute. It's
Absolute.
absolute. Yes, it's objective. It's not subjective. And that, like, you can clearly see plus or minus some things, of course, that are outside of our control, traffic and otherwise, but like otherwise, it should be pretty plainly laid out that like, this is the time that I'm going to need to get ready. I'm going to take a shower, blow dry my hair, 40 minutes, cool. It's going to take me 45 minutes to get into the city on a good day. We'll call it an hour plus. I'd like to be there 15 minutes earlier, park my car or walk over, whatever it is. the duration of the meeting or the event itself as it is, and then the travel time back. Like, that's not a feeling. That's a measurable set of data points that we are kind of bringing together, and we're demonstrating that as a big picture. But like, that's not a feeling. So that's another element that we'd like to bring into the experience, is to like remove the subjective nature of how we differentiate and feel time differently, and just see it for what it is. And then we can make decisions around that. You take 15 minutes to get ready. I take the full 40. You think that you need only an hour and a half to drive. I'd like to be there 2 hours. You know what I mean? Like, we can make those decisions and adjust for that, but like, we shouldn't feel the difference of it. We should see it.
Right. So how were you managing your schedule before Orgo? Um, 3 kids, full-time corporate job,
Yeah.
sports mom. They each have their own lives. I can definitely see why you made the app. But before that, how are you doing it? It sounds really hard.
Chaos. Chaos.
Chaos.
I'll tell you, the third one broke us. My third daughter, like, she came up the ranks the fastest and said yes to more things than the others had at that age. She had been a visual learner for so long, since she's a sideline sib, right? Like, she's been sitting on the sideline, like, learning, and she's like, I want to be out there. I want to try out for that team. I want to say yes to those things. And so now that she said yes, we were so happy to facilitate all of her dreams coming true. The parental dilemma, that before we could realize it, we were like, oh shit, like, we are underwater. We can no longer go man on man. We don't have caregivers in the home. We don't have babysitters. Like, we are literally just trying to like rely on carpools. My mom's in the mix once in a while, trying to assist here and there, but that still requires a lot of delegation, oversight, and clarity once again on like, what does the day entail and who else has to be where. And that was the aha moment, is that my life is now so matrixed and thus is complex. I need tools that are able to keep up with that complexity, but serve it up to me with like a tip of the spear simplicity. Just tell me the next immediate action that I have to take, while all else still remains to be true, but put me on a path where I can execute with like clarity and certainty. And then the rest will kind of start to take shape. And so that's another design principle, is that there's a whole lot of complexity that we're building for behind the scenes, within the app experience and at large, what's happening at life, that we're trying to just like emulate piece by piece. But in terms of like the experience itself and the simplicity of like what we want to show you in the moment that we do, should be everything but that. Quiet out the noise. Tell me what I need to do in the most immediate sense.
Okay. I'm trying to think. I mean, it sounds like you were doing all of that manually at one point.
Yeah, it's like all manual. You got WhatsApp. I'll list it for you. And any sports parents in the room will hopefully nod their head feverishly on this. And I talk to them every single day, so I know that this is a shared, lived experience. Hence the problem at large. But we've got multiple team management apps that are all informing us. I am not going to say yelling at us. They're informing us. They're informative. They are. They're doing their job. But what's happening is that across my 3 kids doing multiple sports at the same time, I've got many, many of those talking to me at the same time. And any number of things are changing constantly relative to scheduling, et cetera. So the collation of all of that information that is kind of locked up in those disparate sources, even before I take part in any of it, is prong number 1. 2, then there's the extra layer of confusion, because again, calendar's not going to give me the real time end to end. Those apps aren't going to give me where the conflicts really lie. Other communication threads like WhatsApp groups and text messages and Google Sheets and Docs that like map out my carpool combination, that lives elsewhere too. So now I have to triangulate all of that. Then let's communicate that between ourselves, amongst the kids, the partner, my husband and I in the room, in the house, and my mom is trying to help out. And then we've got the people that are outside of our household, carpool or otherwise. So like all of that is in the mix every single day, every weekend at scale for the next 15 years. That seemed untenable to me, and untenable in a way that would impact our shared experience as a family and the quality of life that we were leading in trying to just offer these wonderful opportunities that I never had to my kids. And it's not feeling really good. It shouldn't feel this way, right? Like, we didn't sign up for all of this stress, but it just came along with it, and we normalized it, and we're like, surely that's just, the speed of life that we're living these days. And I just kind of question that, being like, sure, that's the speed, but like, must it feel this way? Can we do a little more? Can we do a little better as far as like helping the tech, do some of this for us? So that was kind of the aha moment, is that there's just chaos happening around us, and maybe we can quiet down some of that noise and have the tech step in to do the job that it is positioned to do.
Mm, pretty amazing though. So you went from immigrant to Wall Street to founder, launching with over 2,000 users already waiting. But here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. You literally left your Wall Street job to make $0. Your mom came here with $8 in her pocket. Did she have something to say about that? Your decision?
She had a lot to say. It's such an astute question, more than you know, because I mean, she's my absolute heroine. I can't say anything, other than nothing but amazing things. But there's one fallacy, I think, in kind of our relationship, and that is, I like birthed three beautiful daughters, and she was like so proud. And it was like such a lovely, beautiful moment, in life between mother and daughter. Never has she been so proud than when I had that office. Never had she been so proud when I had my big titles. Like,
Yeah,
something
she's like, we
about
made
that.
it.
Yes, because of the path that she was on. Like, this is a world that we both understood, and I entered into, following her footsteps, like doing the things that she couldn't do due to, her age, or the language limitation, whatever it was that, precluded her journey to have progressed past a certain point, which she had done wonderfully. But, I was like carrying on the torch. Like, that was the most proud moment ever. So when I opted out of all of that, that I have like worked so hard to attain step by step, like
Mm-hmm.
flaw by flaw, it was a moment. It's a moment that continued to, dribble in. She was like, are you like done with this thing yet? Like, she just was kind of like thinking that is a bit of a chapter. 2 years in, certainly not even beginning to scratch the surface of what I would qualify as success, but nonetheless, a journey that I, decided to throw myself wholeheartedly into, in full-time capacity. She understands the complexity. She sees the work that gets put in. She sees the long hours. I'm not done on that couch until 11:45 at night. There's brief respites that get taken throughout the day to either drive a kid, serve a dinner, pick my head up. But like, everything just kind of happens in fast motion around me. And she sees like the length of all of that, and the depth of, commitment to it. She was like, yeah, back in like the corporate days, we would pride ourselves, and what's it? We're turning off the laptop at a certain hour, and
Yep,
we
slams
need
laptop shut.
balance. We need work-life balance. I mean, I worked 20 years to be able to unapologetically close my laptop, turn off my then BlackBerry, whatever it is, and proudly step
Mm-hmm.
into the house, or continue to, go on with my evening, being like, I can't get to that until the morning. You will wait for my response. Life work balance. Now, are you crazy? Everyone's like, oh, entrepreneur, you're so balanced. I'm like, are you insane? I've like literally no time to do anything. No social
And you have
life.
3 kids.
Yeah. And 3 kids, right? Like, I have no social life. I'm not prioritizing anything other than this thing. It's all consuming. So she sees that hustle, and she's just like, oh my God, is this all worth it? Like, are you sure you don't want to go back to that bank job? But no, she's immensely proud, but it took some time for her to like adjust expectations and reality, and just being like, this is not what we've been working toward. Okay.
So that makes me think of
We'll
something
see.
else. And this is about to be a question bomb, like 3 or 4 questions in one. There's so many threads here, but the kids, the sports, the startup, 2,000 users, everything seemingly under control. I mean, I don't know what's behind the scenes, but how are you doing this? Plus, you built a startup with thousands of users in 2 years. Most startups die after the first year. Most co-founders disappear after 9 months.
Yep.
But you've managed to maintain all of that, plus still going to soccer, still going to soccer practice on time. What's the mistake most startup founders make, and how did you manage to keep the team together, plus the kids and
Yeah.
family? I just think to myself, like how?
Oh, I got lots of there's a few answers to that one, but you're observing that obviously there's optics, and then there's, the reality behind some of that. I do build in public, and I am very forthcoming as much as appropriately so, especially in formal channels. I choose to do so very openly within LinkedIn. And so I do share kind of like the trials and tribulations of what we've seen. A lot of it is in retrospect. Some of it is happening real time. One of the things that we've shared, firstly, to no one's shock, although every investor that we speak to doesn't like that, obviously, but we haven't monetized yet. And we're getting into that frontier imminently. We've taken our time at the cost of many other things, but we've taken our time because we're entering a very high demand, high pressure, very loud ecosystem where our ICP is a sports parent. They got a lot to say. And if they don't like it, they'll say it. And they've got a lot of different apps. They got a lot of different, challenges as the very ones that I've experienced. And so the threshold of quality expectations and performance and accuracy is high. And they're all type A. They're going to tell you what they think. Right. So knowing that that's the market we're entering into, we were very tempered and still are in terms of like when we go mass and when we start to, monetize, et cetera, like we got to feel that we're ready. So that readiness, only now are we starting to get closer to, but up until this point, there have been various twists and turns, not so much in scope and not so much in identity and product as I think a lot of teams tend to, evolve through. But for us as a team, and I was very forthcoming about, some of the things that we experienced as a 4-person founding team initially. We had wonderful developers that were with us out the gate in a sweat equity capacity. It is how we've been able to build with nothing. Everything that you see out there on orgohq.com, in the App Store, we have built this thing ourselves from scratch. Sat in a coffee shop with a blank piece of paper and just said, what do you think? Like that's the origin story. And so everything has been developed, by our 4 times 4, 16 hands, 4 times 2, 8 hands. I'm like, what extremities am I counting? 8 hands. But, that's a really long journey to be like sweat equity, full-time jobs. I'm full-time. Everyone else was moonlighting and still, to some extent are. And that's really hard. And like they have families, they have full-time jobs, and they were like coding in the early morning hours, on the weekends, in the evenings. And we got it over the line. But once we hit market, even in like our tempered capacity, requests started to come through. The demand started to assert itself. We're like, this is amazing. This is great. The thing that we built, people need more of. But now we got to iterate through that and do so faster and start to demonstrate that trajectory and that momentum. And that's when the hardship hit, right? Like we started to kind of experience the limitations of our then construct. And so even at the same time, we started to raise a small angel round. And in doing so, we converted from an LLC to C Corp. Having done so at the time as part of the exercise allowed us to open up our partnership agreement. We had revisited that agreement and really restructured some of those roles. Vested equity had been allotted where it needed to be. And then now using those funds relative specifically to the development area, which we needed to bolster and accelerate through the most. Because at the end of the day, I like to say we're not baking cookies, we're building tech. So now the tech has to obviously come up to par. We onboarded a tech partner that is, in a full-time capacity with us and is able to, keep up with the demand. And we're doing a bit of a rewrite at the moment. So there's a whole lot of things kind of happening under the hood that's going to position us for this next round of growth. V2 is what we're calling this next era. So all of that foundational stuff that tends to shake out in a probably very implosive way for many, many startups, we've been able to persevere. Was that easy? Was that smooth? Absolutely not. That was like the hardest thing that real time I was observing going, this is where shit falls apart. This right here is the moment where either we make it and we continue to just show up and do the thing and stay on this path, or like most, we just won't, because people have emotions and then get into each other's ways and they disagree. They see the world differently. So having worked through that, and again, I would say organizational management in this case definitely was a skill set that came to mind, where it's like conflict resolution. You got to keep your eye on the ball. You can't take shit personally. All of that, kind of started to play out in those moments. And yeah, if you're receiving our company updates, as 150 investors do at the end of every month, you probably are asking yourself every single month, how are they still here? And I want you to ask that, because that means that we still are and we're pushing through, not because the market is rejecting us or like we should get the hit, but we haven't had a very linear journey, but we're persevering through it and coming out, the other side to hopefully see the fruits of all of that labor culminate. But it's not a slam dunk overnight, XARR, blah, 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 miracle story. No, it's got all the twists and turns and trials and tribulations for sure.
Yeah, right. That's what I keep hearing from successful people in general, is how long can you survive? How much endurance do you have? The person who
Mhm.
says, this is my goal, I'm going to get it, and I don't care how long it's going to take. I'm going
Yeah.
to sit here in this chair and I'm not getting up until it's done. I'm going to go after it until I get it.
It's true. And like, I think I heard you say the word endurance, which is the one that I would choose to use versus grit. Grit, like, I don't know, I like grit, but it's like an intangible like thing that it's like you have it, you don't, who knows? But endurance, I think that's measurable. Like that's going distance, right? Like that's maintaining strength, that is gearing up for the marathon and not the sprint and whatever other, whatever cheesy um, analogies we want to use there. But like the word endurance, that's probably another theme that's like very consistent throughout, like doing hard things for a long time without a respite, and then not, I mean, yes, we all have bad days, but just being like, there's still a goal in front, right? There's still a finish line ahead or the next mile marker to move through. And I've ran 3 half marathons. I've never done a full, but even that, because I'm like a sprinter, I'm not a long distance runner, but that for me was an
Mm.
exercise of endurance and just like that mental game. So I come back to that constantly, being like, mile 9 is freaking hard, right? Double digits, you're starting to kind of see that other side. But mile 8 and 9, I remember just being like super difficult. I'm always like having a bad day. I'm like, oh, you're getting close to mile 8 and 9. You know what that feeling is. You got to push through
Yep.
to the next day and get to double digits. Like it'll feel better. So endurance.
It's funny you say that. I've literally been saying the same exact thing for probably a year now. I've done 2 half marathons myself, one regular and one Spartan, but I guess I need to do 2 more this year
Yeah,
just so I can one up you. I got to catch up.
that's
But
it.
it's kind of the same thing. Like the first time I ran it, I was like, I don't know if I can complete this. Like, is ridiculous. But I finished it, right? And so the next time I ran, and it seems like almost every time I run a long distance, when I get to mile 4, that's the point where I just want to quit. But I know I've done it before, and I know that if I can just get to mile 5, I will actually complete this. And I try to keep that same mindset
Mm.
now as I build my startup myself. And I know, like, when it starts to feel like mile 4, I'm like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
I know this feeling.
And there's
Um,
different feelings.
but yeah.
Right? Like mile 1, you're like, this is amazing. Naivete, energy for days. Like my playlist is amazing, right? Like all of it. And then, was it like the 5K mark,
Hmm.
right? You were just like, oh, well, here we are. This is starting to feel a little different. Mile 5, you want to die. You go 7, 8, you're just like, oh my God. 9, you're like, I can even just stop right now. Or again, let's get into those double digits. So there's like different mental games that are being played and like different
Hmm.
milestones that are being reached along the way. And so like having that physical experience, I think ties back to the mental as well. And then you can kind of correlate that to be like, oh, I know where I am right now in this leg of the race. I know this feeling and I know what I need to push through, for the next one. But in many ways, like the race is finite, right? So like you've trained, you know what mile 9 feels like in this journey as a founder. You don't know when mile 9 is going to come. You're still back at 4. Like you don't know. So endurance of just like constantly pushing to the next, wherever the next may be, is the endurance part of it all.
True words. I don't know what's more true. That or I'm not a teleporting unicorn. Both very accurate.
Words to live by. Yeah, yeah.
I know, right?
I'm like, should I be animating a unicorn right now with AI? Like, is that going to be our like magic animal that's like our little
That's the
mascot? I
mascot.
feel like it should, yeah. I actually do have one. I'm going to send it to you separately. I had a friend in town who's like an amazing illustrator, and she did a little drawing for us very early on where we were like ideating about branding and logo and stuff. And it is a unicorn that is coming out of a porthole, and it's juggling like the football, the soccer ball, and whatever else. And it looks so janky, but it's kind of like the thing that I think we want to convey with the sarcasm of that statement. So
Hmm.
I got to revive that unicorn. It's got to It's got to have a moment soon.
If you ever change your name, I think I know what the next one should be.
Oh, okay. Do tell.
Unicorn.
Yeah. Alicorns fly. Alicorns fly.
You've thought about this,
Yeah.
I can tell.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so as we wrap this up, last question, but you have principles that you always fall back on as guiding stars. I know you mentioned before choosing your chaos, but what are your top principles? 5, 10, 100. I don't know how long your list is, but what are the principles that Zoya lives by?
Okay. Unprepared for this. Let's see what comes top of mind. I don't know if I can do five.
You can take a second if
Yeah.
you need.
Yeah. I don't know if
I'm
I can
putting you on the
scream
spot right
five
now.
right off the bat. But okay. Oh, think it, say it.
Mm,
A little bit more on the personal front than professional. Obviously, we should edit ourselves. But personally, like I found oftentimes in the case of like you thought of somebody, you're like, oh man, I haven't talked to Jenny in a while. Well, tell Jenny, shoot her a very, very quick text message thinking about you. Hi. That's it. Or, oh man, I should have said that thing. I knew in my gut it wasn't right, or I should have, pushed back or challenged. Say it in the moment,
hmm
say it. So like that, I think grows over time. Again, coming back to like confidence and lived experiences and just kind of like giving fewer F's. Think it, say it just constantly is like a recurring theme. So that's one, it's applicable to both. The Courage to be Disliked is one of the best books that I had ever read, and I highly recommend it. It's by a Japanese philosopher, and it kind of kicks the idea around all these different principles from like a challenger point of view. I am often disliked, and I'm very comfortable with that. I like it.
mm,
If I'm not your cup of tea, that means I'm showing up as a shell and a very like specific version of me that you gauge and say that's not for me. And I
mm,
like that. I don't do that as MO. I just like knowing that I'm not affected by having to, fall in one camp or the other. The courage to be disliked, and that's why I gravitate to the name of that book, because it does take courage, I think, over time. At first it's like paranoia and I don't have confidence. Oh my gosh, what does everybody think about me? It's like, you don't like me? Cool. Great. Amazing. Like, good to know where everybody stands. So yes, courage to be disliked. That is definitely another. Are we at 3 so far?
Think it, say it. Courage to be is
Yeah.
like earlier you said that you were in your unedible
Unapologetic.
unapologetic
Yeah.
phase.
Yeah. I think that ties back to like just courage to be like, okay, you don't like
hmm
it. Cool. Okay. Um, other things. Talked about like the management thing, like that to me is very important. It's a recurring theme in my career, is just like I gravitated toward managing teams and people and just kind of stepping into a world where there are personalities coming together and trying to achieve common goals. So learning to do more through others and with others is a guiding principle. It's not always smooth sailing, obviously, right? We can never control all the circumstances or the culture that surrounds it. But to the extent right now that as much as I ever could have in my career can, because of the team that we're assembling, because of the partners that we're bringing on, because of the path that we're choosing, I've never been in more control of that. So I take great responsibility in coming back to that principle and saying, okay, if we're going to do this with others and we're inviting others into this journey, who are all the ones that we want to curate this with, and what are all the the best reasons to do that for, and just safeguarding and protecting I guess like the ethos of what we want that to feel like. So never felt more in control of that aspect of the destiny
mm
than, of course, in
hmm
corporate we're never fully in ownership of that.
Yeah, that one's a good one. I actually had to realize that one myself as I got older. I used to think, no, I don't need anybody. I can do it all by myself. But I realized that
Yeah,
don't isolate yourself. You actually do need people.
good point. And just to even be alongside you, right? But like at the end of the day, I mean, people choose their journeys from business wise. Again, there's like the solopreneur that makes that a path, and the challenge in theirs is very different than someone else that is trying to assemble teams and kind of work in unison with others. But nonetheless, just like kind of curating that under the
hmm
guise of whatever our mission is and like what our principles are, important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I'll leave it at 3. If others come to mind, I'll ping you offline, but those
Yeah,
are
I
the
think that's a
3.
good amount. Yeah, if you want more, you have to like, comment, subscribe, and tune in for more for part 2 with Zoya.
Yeah, yeah. Like, comment
Like,
below.
comment, all of the stuff. So, where can everyone find you? Just plug
Yeah.
everything.
Appreciate it. Zoya Lehrer, CEO, co-founder of Orgo, stands for Organization on the Go. We help active families manage logistics of youth sports and also daily life. You can find us in the App Store, both Google Play and Apple, and we're at orgohq.com. You can learn more about our offering and all socials, including myself, Zoya Lehrer, and Orgo app on Instagram. Find us there.
All right. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thanks for coming on, Zoya. Looking forward to
Sure.
seeing you not in Austin as we established, but in New Jersey or
In New York,
Dallas
most often
or New
you'll find me in
York.
New York. Yeah. Amazing. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Yep.